Vice President Maybelline was making the rounds, attempting to defend his boss and the chairman of the FCC with a new fairy tale even a 5-year-old wouldn't believe.
Celebrities are rallying to his cause, saying this is a First Amendment assault being carried out by the FCC, Brendan Carr, and by the President of the United States himself. And to that, you say?
Well, there are two things. First of all, I'd like them to tell me exactly what Brendan Carr did to have Jimmy Kimmel taken off the air, because number one, he is currently on the air, and to the extent that he isn't in certain stations, it's because he's not funny and because his ratings aren't very good.
I have some good news for you, J-Dog. We're back on all the stations.
The cameras were rolling, the audience was ready, and a noticeable silence hung over the room as Jimmy Kimmel stepped into the spotlight. He knew exactly where he wanted to take the conversation. His target was J.D. Vance, and a claim Vance had recently made on Fox News.
First of all, Kimmel was taken off the air because he had low ratings, because the late-night talk show host model was not doing particularly well, and let's be honest, because he had become so politically unhinged that I think he wasn't particularly funny. Now, the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, put out a couple of tweets, but the government took no action. We did literally nothing to try to take Jimmy Kimmel off the air. We believe in free speech. We also believe in the right of a television station or a network to cancel somebody because of low ratings. And I think it's a little bit rich. The second point I make, Rashad, is it's a little bit rich for people to say that somehow we're engaged in censorship when literally every day, including yesterday, we found out that Google and YouTube were censoring information at the height of COVID at the direction of the Biden administration. So if we're looking for real sources of the government driving censorship, we should be looking at the policies of the Biden administration. We absolutely reject censorship in the Trump administration. We don't want to prevent anybody from speaking their mind, but if a TV station wants to cancel a guy because he's not funny, that's their business.
But this story was about far more than a punchline that landed perfectly with the audience. Behind the laughter was a response built on real events, not speculation or political spin. Kimmel wasn't relying on rumors or making assumptions about what had happened. Instead, he pointed to facts that could be independently verified. By the time he publicly addressed the controversy, his show had already been restored by both Nexstar and Sinclair, two of the largest station groups that had previously stopped carrying the program. Understanding why that mattered requires looking at how the controversy unfolded in the first place. The situation began when Kimmel was taken off the air for 6 days following a monologue that sparked intense backlash online. Although Disney later reinstated him, several affiliate stations continued keeping the show off their schedules long after the official suspension had ended. That extended absence became a major part of the controversy and played a significant role in shaping everything that happened next.
Up your bullshit. Go on.
There's something else that's important here, Laura, which is that these broadcast companies, ABC, NBC, CBS, they enjoy the public airwaves because they serve the public interest. So I actually think that we should be having a conversation about whether these companies are serving the public interest. That's actually totally separate from the Jimmy Kimmel issue because nothing happened to him. He's currently on the air, and to the extent that he's not, it's because advertisers don't like him because his ratings aren't very good.
My ratings aren't very good. Last time I checked, your ratings were somewhere between a hair in your salad and chlamydia. In 3.5 years, I'm not the one who's going to be doing mascara tutorials on YouTube. How did we wind up with a president and a vice president who wear more makeup than Kylie Jenner and Lady Gaga combined? The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs. Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke. He was somehow able to squeeze Colbert out of CBS. Then he turned his sights on me, and now he's openly rooting for NBC to fire Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers and the hundreds of Americans who work for their shows who don't.
I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him. terrible candidate, idiot if you voted for him, might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible.
Look, I was wrong about Donald Trump. I didn't think he was going to be a good president, Brett. He was a great president.
I didn't know you meant that, Donald.
As the controversy continued to unfold, Donald Trump openly celebrated the situation, while J.D. Vance pointed to it as proof that Jimmy Kimmel had lost his audience. For a while, that narrative appeared to gain traction. But before long, the facts started telling a very different story. Sinclair eventually reversed its decision and restored the show, with Nexstar following soon afterward. Suddenly, claims of collapsing ratings became much harder to defend, as viewers across the country once again gained access to the program, and live audiences continued packing theaters to see Kimmel's latest material. Recognizing the opportunity, Kimmel transformed the entire controversy into comedy. What began as a debate over a temporary suspension quickly evolved into something much bigger. It became a broader conversation about how the controversy unfolded, who was shaping the narrative, and whether the full story was actually being told.
It's been overwhelming. I've heard from a lot of people over the last 6 days. I've heard from all the people in the world over the last 6 days. Everyone I have ever met has reached out 10 or 11 times. Weird characters from my past are the guy who fired me from my first radio job in Seattle, where we are not airing tonight, by the way. Sorry, Seattle. His name is Larry. In 1989, Larry tried to force me to do a bit called Jokes for Donuts, where people would call in with a joke and I would give them donuts. I refused to do it, and I made a lot of fun of Larry for suggesting it, and eventually Larry fired me, and I had to move back in with my parents. But even he wrote in to cheer me up. Thank you, Larry, and I want to thank everyone.
What happened? The events that followed only strengthened Kimmel's position. His return delivered some of the strongest audience numbers the show had seen in years. Even after the initial surge of attention faded, viewership remained noticeably higher than it had been before the suspension. That's not usually what happens to a program that is supposedly losing relevance. While J.D. Vance continued pushing his version of the story, Kimmel had something far more difficult to dismiss: results. The numbers spoke for themselves. One side relied on political talking points, while the other pointed to ratings data, expanded station coverage, and continued audience engagement. As political figures worked to downplay the controversy and its impact, Kimmel kept directing attention toward the larger story unfolding behind the scenes, raising questions that many critics believed deserved a closer look.
Some that I do especially want to mention are my fellow late night talk show hosts, my friend Stephen Colbert, who's found himself in this predicament, my friends Jon Stewart, Seth Meyers, Jimmy Fallon, John Oliver, Conan O'Brien, James Corden, Arsenio, Kathy, Wanda, Chelsea, even Jay. Sometimes I wonder in what world is the vice president of the United States calling into a giant-toothed podcast host to badmouth me and the people who watch this show.
There are these judges. Judge Boasberg comes to mind. Lots of judges who are trying to basically say the president can't exercise the powers of the president.
As the controversy continued to grow, attention from lawmakers and media industry figures added another layer to the story. FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr later clarified that he had never threatened broadcast licenses and had only raised concerns about possible distortion. Yet, even with that clarification, many observers were focused less on individual comments and more on the overall chain of events. First, the show was removed from the air. Then, public pressure surrounding the controversy intensified. Disney eventually reinstated Kimmel, and affiliate stations gradually began restoring the program as well. By the time Kimmel returned to the spotlight, he had turned that entire sequence of events into material for his monologue. That's why the debate was never simply about ratings or audience numbers. At its core, the controversy raised larger questions about influence, public pressure, and the efforts made behind the scenes to control the narrative and manage the fallout.
Really is running the country like it's one of his businesses. He said he would. Just to give you some perspective, the government being shut down is even worse than when it's up and running. Republicans would like you to believe that Democrats shut the government down, but the bill they wanted the Democrats to sign would knock out about 15 million Americans from health insurance. If this bill passes, your health insurance premiums could go up 75%, so there was no way the Democrats could vote for it. It's like like going to dinner and the waiter says, you must order lasagna. The chef made it today. And a bunch of you are going to get food poisoning from it. But if you don't eat it, you've ruined the meal. That's the Garfield version of what's going on right now.
When Jimmy Kimmel took the stage in Brooklyn, he didn't stop after landing one memorable punchline. Instead, he kept the momentum going, stacking joke after joke throughout the segment. The now famous Vice President Maybelline remark was only the beginning. From there, Kimmel mocked what he portrayed as the administration's obsession with image and appearance, joking that he had successfully managed to avoid mascara tutorials for most of his life. But the comedy soon shifted toward a more serious target. He poked fun at the release of files connected to Amelia Earhart, while suggesting that other controversies deserved far more public attention. Beneath the laughter was a deeper message. Critics argued that the joke highlighted a familiar pattern, one in which attention is often redirected away from uncomfortable subjects and toward safer, less politically dangerous distractions. By blending humor with criticism, Kimmel turned a series of jokes into a broader commentary on how public narratives are shaped.
Silver lining to the shutdown, according to their official website, during the shutdown, our friends at the FCC will cease their response to consumer complaint and inquiry phone lines, which I'm not a lawyer, but I think means we can now say whatever we want on TV, right? To being a direct violation of the First Amendment is not a particularly intelligent threat to make in public. Ted Cruz said he sounded like a mafioso. Although, I don't know, if you want to hear a mob boss make a threat like that, you have to hide a microphone in a deli and park outside in a van with a tape recorder all night long. This genius said it on a podcast. Brendan Carr is the most embarrassing car Republicans have embraced since this.
How long you worked here?
A year.
Okay. Donut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which donut, though?
Just whatever makes sense. No pickles. Hold pickles.
Oh, well, no, I can get that for you.
One of the reasons Jimmy Kimmel's comedy connects so strongly with audiences is his ability to expose contradictions that many people already recognize. Time and time again, he focuses on moments where public messaging appears completely out of sync with reality. In this case, he highlighted the contrast between anti-elite political rhetoric and the images of wealth, privilege, and luxury.
Of meddling where they shouldn't under many administrations, but it wasn't always like this. There was an FCC commissioner back in 2022 who worked under Joe Biden who was spot on. He wrote, President Biden is right. Political satire is one of the oldest and most important forms of free speech. It challenges those in power while using humor to draw more people into the discussion. That's why people in influential positions have always targeted it for censorship. You know who wrote that? FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr. Here, our freedom to speak is what they admire most about this country. And that's something I'm embarrassed to say I took for granted until they pulled my friend Steven off the air and tried to coerce the affiliates who run our show in the cities that you live in to take my show off the air. That's not legal. That's not American. That is un-American, and it is so dangerous.
The audience's reaction was no accident. People laughed because they already understood the context behind the joke and had been watching the controversy unfold in real time. That's what made the punchline so effective. It wasn't just comedy, it was tied directly to events that viewers were already familiar with. But the story didn't end there. As the debate continued, J.D. Vance reportedly stuck to the argument that Kimmel's troubles were ultimately the result of declining ratings.
Conservative commentators also attempted to link the suspension to Disney's broader financial struggles and challenges within the streaming industry, suggesting those factors explained the entire situation. Yet that explanation became increasingly difficult to maintain as Kimmel's return continued generating attention and audience engagement remained strong. Week after week, viewers kept tuning in, and the more interest the show attracted, the harder it became to argue that the audience had simply moved on.
Call me creepy, cringy, awkward, that I give people something called the ick. They want you to think that I can't order a simple donut.
Was appointed chairman of the FCC by this former crusader for free speech.
If we don't have free speech, then we just don't have a free country. It's as simple as that. If this most fundamental right is allowed to perish, then the rest of our rights and liberties will topple. Just like dominoes, one by one, they'll go down.
That was also in 2022. And I wonder, how did that guy turn into this guy?
Who would you like to see replace Kimmel on late night?
Well, a lot of people, anybody could replace him. The guy had no talent. Kimmel he was fired, he had no talent. He's a whack job, but he had no talent. And more importantly than talent,
What made Kimmel's approach particularly effective was the strategy behind it. Instead of relying on emotional arguments or dramatic accusations, he focused on facts that could be independently verified. He pointed to station groups, audience numbers, timelines, and distribution decisions, allowing viewers to compare those details with the rumors circulating online and reach their own conclusions. That gave his argument greater credibility because it felt less like a political debate and more like evidence being presented for examination. The Brooklyn monologue worked so well because Kimmel trusted the facts to carry the message. There was no shouting, no theatrical outrage, and no need for exaggerated reactions. Instead, he carefully organized the information in a way that exposed contradictions without directly forcing the audience toward a conclusion. While J.D. Vance continued discussing ratings, stations across the country were already restoring Kimmel's show to their schedules. Viewers didn't need lengthy explanations or complicated graphics to understand what was happening. They heard the jokes, saw the facts behind them, and immediately recognized the point Kimmel was making.
How do you assess the legal battles here?
Yeah, I bet all those judges are huge fans of Jimmy Kimmel, by the way, but I think, Vince, that one, we have an appeals process.
Looking back at the entire controversy from start to finish, the sequence of events is actually quite straightforward. Jimmy Kimmel was suspended by ABC for 6 days following a monologue that sparked widespread backlash. Donald Trump quickly praised the decision, while J.D. Vance later appeared on Fox and portrayed the situation as evidence that Kimmel was losing viewers and relevance. Although ABC eventually reinstated the show, several major station groups, including Sinclair and Nexstar, continued keeping it off their schedules for an extended period. However, as public scrutiny intensified and the controversy gained national attention, the situation began to shift. Sinclair ultimately reversed its decision. Nexstar followed, and FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr later clarified his comments regarding the matter. When viewed in chronological order, the timeline tells a clear story of a television controversy that gradually evolved into a much larger debate about ratings, media influence, political pressure, and public perception.
It's just me, Jimmy, the chairman of the FCC, gently suggesting that you gently shut the up.
But you can't say that. That's a violation of free speech.
Oh yeah, about that. Speech, it ain't free no more.
What? It's not free no more?
Yeah, we're charging by the word now.
You're charging by the word? How much are you charging?
Depends on what you want to say. Like, you want to say something nice about the president's beautiful, thick yellow hair, or how he can do his makeup better than any broad. That's free.
When Jimmy Kimmel finally stepped onto the Brooklyn stage, he wasted no time confronting the controversy head-on. He referenced J.D. Vance's comments, highlighted the stations that had restored his show, and delivered the now famous Vice President Maybelline punchline with a smile that immediately drew laughter from the crowd.
I don't agree with many of those people on most subjects. Some of the things they say even make me want to throw up. It takes courage for them to speak out against this administration, and they did, and they deserve credit for it. And thanks for telling your followers that our government cannot be allowed to control what we do and do not say on television, and that we have to stand up to it. I've been hearing a lot about what I need to say and do tonight, and the truth is, I don't think what I have to say is going to make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't.
So, what is the biggest takeaway from everything that happened? In many ways, it comes down to preparation and credibility. J.D. Vance entered the debate with a claim, while Jimmy Kimmel responded with evidence. That difference helps explain why the segment resonated so strongly with audiences. The humor worked because it was built on information that viewers could verify for themselves. Kimmel didn't need dramatic twists, exaggerated accusations, or sensational rhetoric to make his point. Instead, he simply repeated Vance's comments, highlighted the growing number of stations that had restored his show, and allowed the fact.
So if that guy walked into your office and told you he was there to start making cuts.
I have friends who met a husband, a wife, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, who met the best man at their wedding at Turning Points USA because it was an organization of patriots dedicated to making this country the very best.
And that brings us to the viewers, because moments like these often spark some of the strongest reactions. Whether you saw the Vice President Maybelline joke as the highlight of the night, or thought another punchline landed even better, there's no denying that Kimmel managed to turn a political controversy into one of the most talked about late-night moments in recent memory. If you had a favorite line from the segment, let everyone know in the comments. And if you followed the controversy from the beginning, watching each station decision and public response as the story unfolded, share which moment stood out to you the most. As always, if you enjoy breaking down the biggest political and media stories as they happen, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Because whenever public narratives collide with real-world results, the story almost always becomes far more interesting than anyone expected.
The chairman of the FCC.
You don't need to know my name, and I am the new chairman of the FCC.
You were appointed FCC chairman by Donald Trump?
Sir Trump, yes. I used to do some work for the man here and there in Atlantic City.
But did I just hear you on the phone threatening Whoopi Goldberg?
No, I would never threaten Miss Goldstein. I was just teaching her a lesson about consequences.
No, well, pardon me for saying so. Maybe you're the wrong guy to talk to, but it seems like the FCC is using mob tactics to suppress free speech.
What the did you just say?
My mother.
We are definitely not driving, Dr. The brunt of the effect of the shutdown, it will be felt right here in New York. To punish you for disliking him, Trump is putting $18 billion worth of New York City infrastructure projects, like the new rail tunnels under the Hudson and the 2nd Avenue subway project, on hold to make sure the money isn't being used to support DEI. Apparently, they think trans stands for transportation over there, and they want to stop it. This is clearly an abuse of power to punish the city. And New York City infrastructure projects are not supposed to be delayed because Trump wants to strong-arm Democrats into cutting health care. They're supposed to be delayed because they're New York City infrastructure projects.